Thank you for joining me today. My name is Sarah Huffman, and I am the Art Rental and Sales Associate at the Art Gallery of Alberta. We welcome you to our Meet the Artist series, a part of AGA Live. Here at the gallery, we embrace the teachings of Tetewa, a Cree phrase meaning welcome, there is room. In our house, even the virtual one, everyone is welcome. I'm delighted to be your host for this hour. Joining me today is artist Alexis Marie Chute. Before we dive into the subject, I'd like to highlight that this is an interactive event and we'd like to hear from you. You are welcome to use the chat window on the side screen to share your comments as we discuss with Alexis. If a question gets unnoticed or unanswered at the time, please know that we will review all unanswered questions before we wrap up today's event. So Alexis Marie is an award-winning artist, photographer, filmmaker, art curator, public speaker, and best-selling author. She has received over 50 noteworthy distinctions for her work over the last 20 years. She achieved her Bachelor of Fine Arts in Art and Design from University of Alberta and studied at Media Design School in Auckland, New Zealand. She graduated valedictorian with her Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing from Lesley University in Cambridge. Alexis Marie Chute was the 2012-2013 Artist in Residence at Harcourt House Artist Run Center, where she began her groundbreaking fine art photo and documentary series, The Quiet Rebuild, featuring volunteers from across North America. The series has been featured in the Bellingham Review, Photo Ed Magazine, Exposure Photography Festival, and was the winner of the Ultimate Composition competition at Method Art Gallery, Arizona. Her visual and literary works on the topic of resiliency have been exhibited and published internationally. She works in photography, paint, fiber arts, video art, and mixed media. Her artwork has been exhibited around the world, and she has been published in newspapers, magazines, literary journals, and beyond. Her bright, bold, abstract paintings are represented at the ARNS Gallery at the Art Gallery of Alberta. Please take this time with me to give a warm welcome to our September artist, Alexis Marie Chute.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Hello, so lovely to see you tonight. I'm really looking forward to diving into some questions because you are a fantastic artist. You have so many things you do, Alexis, and we definitely have questions for you about that.
Oh, awesome. I'm excited. Let's do it.
Cool. So let's dive into, I think one of my favorite questions to ask folks is, when did you find in your heart that you wanted to be an artist?
Well, I think that I've always been an artist, even before I knew that being an artist was a thing you could be. I just remember when I was a kid, I set up an art studio in my parents' basement, got paint on the carpet, gave the carpet a haircut, trying to avoid getting in trouble. The second I could get a camera, I've had a camera in my hands, and I literally carry a camera with me everywhere I go. I think that for me, art is a way that I process the world, I experience the world. It's also a way that I share who I am and my perspectives. And I can't imagine doing or being anything else. So I'm excited.
That's so lovely. That's awesome. So other than the paint and the carpet incident, how did you begin your artistic practice and how has it developed over time?
Yeah, so I think that I developed just really at a very early age, just a passion for exploration. So I remember making artwork out of makeup. I remember making art out of dried flowers, like just anything I could get my hands on. I was exploring and experimenting and playing and making a giant mess. And that really progressed throughout school. I remember when I was in high school, and I took all the art classes, the photography classes, everything I could. And I started working as an artist and a photographer right out of high school when I was 18. So it's always been something that is so natural to who I am. Even exhibiting back then, I just always loved creating something, and the presentation aspect is so fun for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, then I went to the U of A, and like I think being in a creative community it's stimulating. I actually, one of my favorite parts about going to the U of A in particular was studying art history. So I devoured art history, like Canadian art history, the history of photography, the history of advertising. Those things really just spoke to me, and so I think that so much of that experience, it deepened my artistic practice in terms of like the thoughtfulness that I bring to my process of making, and also to my thoughtfulness in how I present my work. And many of those people I connected with over the years, both in my undergrad and my master's, I've stayed in contact with, are people that it constantly inspire me. So, and I feel like I've just never stopped creating. I'm always, I'm never content just sitting by. So even during COVID, I'm starting new paintings and drawings, and I'm sketching and taking notes about ideas I have and story ideas. So I think I'm like a compulsive creator, and that really brings me joy. And so I try to convey that through my work as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love the fact that when you went to school, it was like that validation of like, yes, being an artist is legitimate, and making those really cool connections and taking those courses that really feed that love that you have for art. And I totally agree. Once you get into that world, it's like, oh my gosh, there's so much here for me.
Totally. Yeah. And at the same time, I did find that it was amazing being with those people, but once you leave school, you have to fight for it. You have to fight for what you believe in. You have to fight for making a career in the arts, because it doesn't come easy. You know, some careers you'll go and you study dentistry and you leave school and you become a dentist. Like it's kind of like this clear path. And I definitely feel like art, almost like abstract art, it's open to interpretation. You don't know how this lifestyle is going to come together. And I would definitely look at where I'm at today, and I would honestly say that I don't necessarily think I could have anticipated 5-10 years ago where I'm at today, but I am thankful for my journey, the ups and the downs.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, because once you start on like a series of artwork, you know, you kind of have an outline of where you're going, but at the same time, if you started a different series prior to that, or if you decided to do a different project, that just takes you on so many different ways. And I think that's what you're talking about, Alexis, of like, you may have gone a different route in your career. You might not have gone to university, or you might not have, you know, done a whole bunch of other of your accolades if you started with a different project first, or yeah.
Well, you're right. And even like life circumstances come up. And I feel like as an artist, your personal life is intermingled with your artwork. It's inescapable. So the things that have surprised me in life have also surprised my artwork with new iterations over the years.
Yeah, really great point. Next question for you. When you were in school, what were some important lessons that you learned about your artistic practice?
Yeah, so I really learned during school that I need to be my own advocate. And that was a hard lesson to learn. And I think that for me, I've always pushed the boundaries of like, what is art? And I remember I had some really conservative painting instructors, one in particular. And during that stage, I was creating conceptual clothing out of strange materials. So I made a dress out of confetti. I made a dress out of rice bags. I made a dress out of shower curtains. I made a dress out of paper, different things like that. And then I photographed people in the dresses, and then I would print those, and then I would paint and collage mixed media on top of those.
Oh, wow.
At the time, though, like I got a lot of backlash from one professor in particular. Right. And I remember like because I was in the creative process. It wasn't like I had a finished piece. I was experimenting and playing. And so I really had to learn during that experience that I need to follow my creative instincts. I need to believe in what I'm doing, and other people might not understand it, and that's okay. It's hard when you're getting graded in school.
Yeah, exactly.
I really learned through that experience to be strong. And I remember being told that, why are you doing this? Photography is not art. And,
ouch.
And those words have never left me, because I feel like I've had to grapple with that in my own way, and figure out, like, what is art to me, and how do I translate that? And so really, like, at the heart of everything I do, I see myself as an artist, and so that might take different forms of expression, but it doesn't necessarily matter the medium. Half the time it is the message and the artistry that goes into it. So I really learned about being my own advocate, and that goes to so many different areas of life. And I also learned through school how we have to define what success is for us. So what might be a successful career to some people, that might not be what I want my life to look like. So I really figured out that, like, for me, while I would love to paint till 4 a.m, success looks to me the integration of my family and my career. And so I'm the kind of artist that I bring my kids to so many of my art gallery openings, to my film screenings. They don't know how lucky they are as little kids to be able to see and experience these things. But that's what I had to define. I learned that I had to define what success was for me. Many of my peers in art school, they had a different trajectory. And while I love and support them, I had to really figure out, like, what do I want this life to look like for myself? And I have to say that I don't know if art school really prepared me for the business side of, like, making a career in the arts. But I'm really fortunate to have parents, and my parents are divorced, so I have more than 2 parents. I have a plethora of parents who have demonstrated to me entrepreneurship and business savvy that I feel that has really helped me so that I can do my artwork full time. And I am really thankful to be able to do that, because I can't imagine dividing my heart and my passions. So those are some of the, like, life lessons that came out of school or came as a result of school realizing I needed. You learn different things from different people, and school can teach you one group of skills, but family and then also living it is just an amazing additional education.
Totally. Yeah. And that element of entrepreneurship is so important in this day, and with social media and with, doing live events like this. It's very important to be engaged with that kind of content. And one of my favorite things about your artistry is your website is very crisp and it's very clear, and I can look on your website, know exactly what you're working on, what you have worked on, and I get to know you a little bit more, and that's really, really cool to see that.
Thank you. I was just contemplating today, I'm like, should I update my website? Should I change my website? But I guess it's good. So that's good.
No, it's great. Don't worry. That's awesome. I want to dive into our little presentation that we have so that our viewers can see some of the artwork that you've created. So this piece here, I didn't even recognize that this was your work, because I've never seen this type of work of yours before. Can you tell me a little bit about when this was made?
Yeah, so I am terrible at dates. So this would be like circa 2016-ish, I'm gonna say. And yeah, like I love exploring and experimenting. And so for me, nature is definitely one of those places where I get inspired and I connect with spirituality and I just love spending time with friends and family. So for me, being out in nature with people I love is such an inspiration. So I did this little series of landscape paintings. So it's hard to tell with this image because they're,
you have 3, so I just thought we'd pop over to all 3.
And so in these paintings, I did them on raw canvas. So really, like, the canvas just soaks up the paint in such a beautiful way. And then there's also different kinds of paper that are collaged onto the mountain to create like the different layers and the different stratas of the mountainscape, and then like letting the paint just drip down on the raw canvas. I just wanted something natural and flowing and earthy. So that's really where this series came about. And the first one in this series, the largest one, my daughter is like, you are not allowed to sell this. Like, it comes just before this. Yeah. It is, I think it's like 6 or 7 feet wide by 4 or 5 feet tall. So it's giant. Yeah. And she's like, no, you can't sell it. My daughter is like, she has very specific pieces of my work that she's like, no, not for sale. No. So, I would love to do more in this series. Yeah, it's just a matter of time. I have so many projects that I want to.
This is your gentle reminder to do this series.
Yeah, there we go. I'm taking a mental note.
I really enjoy these ones because I can really feel that life that it has. And yet with the dripping, it almost feels like it's fading away. It's really cool. There's really cool juxtaposition in all 3 of these, and the colors that you chose are very bright and bold, and they're very beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Do you know what I should say? I exhibited these like many times over the years, but some people look at them and instead of seeing a mountain, like looking up at a mountain, I've had some feedback at the last show that I had that people were like, oh, I feel like I'm looking down over a cliff at the ocean.
Whoa.
So then I was like, okay, I can kind of see that too. So it's like different perspective.
That's wonderful. Well, yeah, and that's so nice about meeting an artist and having those conversations when you're at an exhibit or like even through an event like this, where you can actually get the artist's thoughts behind it, and then you can, reflect and say, is that what it truly means to me? Or, how did I interpret that? How did it make me feel? And that's just what we love about art, isn't it?
Oh, totally. Well, and that's the beautiful thing. We as creators put our hearts and souls into what we make, and then we let it, like a kid, we let it out into the world, and people can love and appreciate or hate it, and that's okay, whatever perspective they have. I just love creating like a response in people. That's, if my art is like just easily passed over, then I'm kind of like, oh, I haven't done my job. I want people to stop and pause.
Yeah, that's awesome. And when you create a piece, do you have a specific outcome that you want to create, or does it kind of, come to life as you're working on it?
So this is where I think that I really start with almost like a meditative headspace. I think about, I dream about, I daydream about my work before I even start making it. And sort of my creative process that works well for me is I'll kind of like make a loose plan in my head of what I want to accomplish loosely. Yeah. And then I'll collect, almost like a bird is collecting different things for their nest. I kind of collect everything that I could imagine using in that project or series or painting. And then I really just like let myself get into the headspace of creating. And what that looks like for me, ideally, is like maybe 5 to 10 hours where I'm just working. And I don't have too many interruptions, which is unique now because I do have a lot of kids. So to find that like truly uninterrupted time, at least that long of time, is more rare. But so I collect everything, and then I just get lost in the process. So I don't usually work on perhaps like just one painting at a time, like going one to one to one.
Right.
I might start like 10 paintings at once and go back and forth and just figure out. I very much am responsive to the creative process as I'm making. And then I'll stand back and look at the work and I'm like, okay, do I need more? This is a big lesson, is knowing when to stop, because I've overpainted or pushed it too far many times in my past, and I'm like, no, I must learn restraint. Some of the later paintings I know you're going to show have like much less like brush stroke, and they're simpler, sort of pared down, and that also reflected the state of when I was creating it, how I was feeling, where I was at in my life. So that's kind of my process. I very much like I'm always thinking and reacting in the creative process, opening the door for happy accidents, for spontaneity, for the mistakes to grow into something. And so I'm not too like restrictive as I'm creating.
That's awesome. And then now we're going to jump into the this series actually. And these ones I have a little zoom in so that folks can see the detail. Can you tell us a little bit about these pieces?
Yeah, so this is in a series I call Joy Plus Passion 2. So I did a series, I feel like all of my work is an evolution. So it's almost like a timeline of my life. So these are some of my newest paintings, where there's really bright colors. They reflect the experience of like where I find myself now. I've been through some challenging experiences in my life. The biggest, most noteworthy one was my son Zachary passing away, which would have been he would have been 10 this October. So it has been a decade where my art after losing him was maybe more dark. I did black and white portraiture of other people who are going through loss and struggles. And really, like over time, the work has become more bright, more joyful as I've rediscovered who I am as a mother, as a woman, as an artist after that loss. And so these are definitely some of the light, bright, airy paintings that just encapsulate where I'm at now, at this joyful place.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, I love the details on this.
Well, thank you. And so these are so these are some of the darker, like the black and white, the more conceptual photography that I was taking of other people. So I really felt like I wanted to not just tell my story, but also help other people share their story of rebuilding after hardship. And so I call this series the Quiet Rebuild Portraits. I also have the Quiet Rebuild Sculptures, which are wood-based, but with these portraits, I put a call out for people on social media saying, have you been through something in your life that you're now rebuilding from? And so I photographed people who had also lost someone they loved, or they have battled through addiction or health challenges. Just really inspiring stories of resiliency in the face of the unpredictability of life. We can't control everything. And so I can collaborate with these people in creating something that was a meaningful portrait to capture conceptually what they've been through and where they're hoping to go in their life. And these have been exhibited and published all over. And I'm really thrilled to be a part of these people's stories and help encourage others, because definitely when these are on exhibit, people are encouraged to like come up close and learn the stories behind these people. And so many viewers can relate and are encouraged by the hope and the strength that these people exhibit.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's another look at this exhibit. What gallery was this in?
This is at the Renaissance Gallery at the Edmonton Airport. Yeah. So this was actually during COVID. So, but people were still passing through the airport, and like it's a really cool space. There's always pilots and flight attendants. There's people with their suitcases walking by. It's an amazing, bright, beautiful gallery space, and yeah, I'm always very thankful to have the opportunity to share my work in a space like that where there's lots of passersby.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not really a conventional spot where people are expecting, I'm going to a gallery today, right? Yeah, it's a great place. It's a great place for art ambushes. You know, people are just passing by and then they're like, whoa, there's art here, right? And so kind of like it takes people off guard, but yeah, it's a cool art ambush. I like that phrase. Hashtag art ambush.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And they're very what is the word I'm looking for? They're very striking images. Like it's not like a simple landscape where you're, walking by and it's like, oh, that's nice. It's gonna grab their attention for sure.
Exactly. Well, making people uncomfortable is cool sometimes. Making them think, right? I think, we have so much content fed to us. And that's one amazing thing about art is it does invite people to slow down and take a breath and have a longer moment of contemplation. And definitely these photographs are, because they are outside the box, that's for sure. Especially the subject matter and the conceptual nature that they're created in.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And do you have any more projects that you're working on currently that are similar to this one?
Yeah, so actually this series of artwork, I'm just in the beginning of the gear-turning mental planning stage of revisiting every person that I have a portrait of in the Quiet Rebuild, because it's been, for some of these people, 5 to almost 10 years later. Wow. And so revisiting them and seeing where they're at now and creating a new portrait. I'm thinking this might be something that I continue with these people over the years, and then there'll be like a series of development. And yeah, I think that's going to be really special. So that's one thing that I'm in the process of planning. I'm also sorry, what was that?
I said that is so cool.
I'm excited. Like I really love the photo series, for example, where it's like husband and wife are taking a picture of themselves every year for 50 or 60 years, and so you really see them grow as a couple, like their age and their love. So I really can imagine these people. I know that so many of them have gone on to do amazing things because of their loss. Like there was another mother who lost a child, and she's in Toronto, and she organizes fundraising balls for little girls and to help fundraise for the hospital there. So there's just there's so many beautiful things. One of them's a writer, and so she has created poetry books that expand on her loss and her life. And anyway, so there is inspiring people. So I'm excited to see the trajectory of these people and their stories over the years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
that's a really neat project.
And I have a lot of things that I'm sort of on the cusp of working on. So I just finished releasing my fantasy, the Eighth Island Trilogy series, which is it's a young adult fantasy adventure book that follows 3 unlikely heroes. There's Grandpa Archie, his mother-in-law Tessa, and his 14-year-old granddaughter Ella. So they're like a motley crew of world hoppers that have to ultimately save everyone in every world. But I'm actually thinking about and planning and starting to work on a graphic novel prequel to their story. So, yeah, where I illustrate, and if you've seen the Handmaid's Tale graphic novel, I was really inspired by that. Have you seen it? Yeah, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. And so I read a lot of graphic novels and comics and Dogman and stuff to my kids, but I can really see that this is going to be more of an art exploration or an art book that is also a fantasy kind of story prequel. it's going to be cool. I'm not explaining it well, but it's going to be really beautiful and fartsy once it's created. But I think it's inspiring. Like younger kids need some like beautiful inspiration. Like we create like coffee table books and beautiful things for adults, but I think young readers, they need like super artistic, thought-provoking books and artwork and mashups of those as well. So that's what I'm excited to create. I'm going to start working on like the first draft of that during NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writing Month.
Oh,
and that's
okay.
every November. So I've got about a month before I actually start like really diving into this writing process. But yeah, I've been working on the illustrations and things. So lots of little projects. I always have lots of little projects on the go.
Yeah, absolutely. And now here's Joy and Passion.
Yeah.
So this came after the previous slide.
This came before the abstract paintings that are like with yellows and blues.
Oh,
so
right.
Yeah, so this is like Joy plus Passion 1, and then those other ones were like Joy plus Passion 2. So this series, like I really incorporated black, white, gold, silver, copper, and I was really going from a different, like just really changing gears and trying to be like, how can I minimally like slow down and just create really strong, powerful lines and be really meditative and mindful in the process, simplistic, almost like a breath of fresh air. And then the color is really where like that passion and the joy comes through. But it's definitely like it represents for me a stage where in my artistic life, I'm really trying to be thoughtful about every mark that I make. So that's really like this series where that came from. Yeah.
Wonderful. I love how there's so much movement. It's very freeing, and I can definitely feel that joyfulness that it brings. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, I have a couple of these in my house, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should add these to like the do not sell list. But no, I really love when like sharing my work and selling my work. To me, I could drown in all the paintings and things, but this is definitely like a series that I have so close to my heart. I love it, and it feels so just like a fresh slate for me, which is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. They're really perfect pieces for like that really modern home. Like I can really see that with like a very, angular couch and like really funky coffee table and that kind of stuff. But they're also just so easy and so simple on the eye that you can really play with a lot of the colors that they have and the shapes. So,
totally.
Yeah.
Oh, you're like designing a house in your head. You're like,
I am.
That's fun to do. Yeah. So yeah, this is a like work in progress photograph. Yeah. So you can see I'm not fancy when I'm painting. And yeah, this is my home studio. So I have a collection of desks, and I've have them covered with what actually is like boat seating, like that's kind of fabric. So that like a little bit of like there's no way that any water or anything would get through. It's spill proof. And what's cool is like my kids also create in this space. They don't always clean up, which drives me insane. but it is really nice that like they're all right down there with me while I'm making. And even my one kid who's not artistically inclined, sort of to the left side of me in this photograph, we have a space where he can play hockey. So I'm painting, he'll play hockey. My daughter will be creating, and she'll be filming a YouTube video of her art project. So I love being all together as I'm working. It's an awesome like place to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to just play and be creative. Yeah.
And I'll ask my kids, I'm like, oh, how does this look? And my daughter will be like, sorry, Mom, I actually don't like it. And then I'll be like, okay, maybe I need to like work on this more or something. But yeah, it is cool to get like the honest feedback. And yeah, that's a finished painting that's hanging there. It's the one I was just working on.
That's awesome.
And so,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say, like, this has acrylic paint, oil pastels, so many like graphic things just all layered together. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Cool. I was gonna ask, how long does a piece usually take you?
That's a good question. And I would say that there is not a standard answer. Like some paintings, probably like some things in life, some things come quickly and easily and I'm in the flow and it's just like, oh, it appears. Whereas some, like this painting, actually, like I thought it was done like 5 times. And then I'm like, oh, and this was pre-COVID. And so I had a girlfriend over and she was like, oh, and she gave me some, feedback and stuff just came back to it. And now I'm at a place where I'm like, okay, it's done. But so yeah, it could be anywhere from a day to, I just had a painting on a sculpture that I just finished and I was working on it for a few years. So yeah, you never know. You never know how long it'll take.
Absolutely. My current studio space is at my mom and dad's house, and I'll like be working on something and then I'll come back to my house and I'll go back and my mom will have it hanging up and I'm like, no, it's not done. It's done to me. So
well, that's so cute. She's obviously a fan of yours.
Yeah. That's always a challenge because you go back to look at it and you can probably tweak something here and there and you can probably add a little bit more color or there's something that you feel needs to happen. So I really like that. You mentioned earlier that you're slowing down that process and you're just letting it be, because that's definitely a hard place to get to as an artist, especially if you have that kind of competitive drive or,
It comes with age. Like I'm like, oh, I care less about what everyone thinks now in my mid-30s. I'm definitely like more like, oh, I'm gonna slow down and not be quite so. My mom used to call me a microwave girl. Like I want everything now. That was her perspective. I'm not saying that was the truth. Definitely like as I've gotten older and it's probably necessity too, being a busy person working on lots of different things. Yeah. Giving myself that extra moment to slow down and to sleep on it before I keep painting and make it irreplaceable, like changes I can't go back to.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Slowing down.
Intentionality. Yeah.
Exactly.
Totally. I really, really enjoyed this one.
Oh, thank you. Well, this is another example. Like I had to like hold myself back, but I think it's like one of those little beautiful milestones as an artist to be able to be like, okay, like I'm gonna stop, and it's like it's just beautiful as it is, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm a huge fan. Like blue and yellow are my favorite colors, and so that's really like I just was like, the joy and the passion bubbled out of this series.
Do you ever make something and when it's finished, you think, this is for me, this is mine?
Well, like that large landscape one for sure is like, one of my children. It's hard to like, I can't imagine ever letting go of that.
Yeah.
But then I create some paintings too that I'm like, oh my God, I hate it. And then my husband's like, oh my gosh, I love it. And like, he's taken a painting that I did not enjoy and he's hung it in his office. So to me, I'm just like, I just don't understand. But yeah, so not everything I create is great. There's beauty in the failures as well. And that's one thing I did learn from my undergrad in visual art. Yeah. I remember feeling blocked and like, I don't know what to do. And this lovely woman named Dawn, who worked in the administrative offices of art and design, she encouraged me to go and make an ugly painting. And I was just like, she's like, use the most ugly colors you could think of. And so I like had like poopy green and just make a big mess, but get it out there. Like just get making something. Don't just stop and be still. Like, just start with an ugly painting. Mm-hmm. And that was like one of the best pieces of advice I've ever received. And so now, like, I just try not to judge anything that I come out, like whether I'm sketching or painting. I'm not going to like everything, but just the act of creating gets your creative juices flowing and helps you live in that state of creativity where it's not like writer's block or artist block. You're flowing. So it's a nice trick if you're feeling stuck.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and especially if you are starting an artistic practice and you are starting to make things and then you feel so discouraged because it's not exactly what you had envisioned in your mind. I think that's a really great trick to just keep pushing through that, and eventually you'll get to where you want to be.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. And so here, is this the one in your husband's office?
No, this is actually one in the lawyer's office.
Right.
No, I like this one. This is one of the ones I like. Yeah, but just again, like I've always been drawn, even since I was a kid, to either black and white, which you see in my black and white photography, or really vivid, intense colors that come up against each other. So yeah, so with this one, I was actually picturing in like an abstracted nature scene and just like let the colors almost become pixelated. And it's very textural as well. So yeah, and this lawyer's got lots of on this piece, which is awesome.
Yeah. Well, it just goes to show that your pieces are so fun and they're so bright that if you just put it in like a dull office, it completely makes it, feel more fun, and, you can get inspired by it. And it's something to look at other than, exactly what's in front of you and you're, trying to get something submitted or whatever. You can sit back and have some time to look at the piece.
Totally. Well, I really believe like creating, whether it's your home or your office, creating an inspiring space. Mm-hmm. So whatever type of art resonates with you, like surrounding yourself with beauty helps you to just live in that beautiful moment more.
Absolutely. Yeah. So this is one of the pieces that we have in Art Rental and Sales. And do you remember when you made this one?
Yes, so this would have been 2012 or 2013, because I made this one when I did my residency at Harcourt House, which is 2012, 2013.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And this one's huge, but it's so like striking because it is so big that you just like, you get lost in it.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking the same thing. I had a client once who was looking at this piece, and she kept referring to it as the man in the mask.
The man in the mask.
Man in the mask. And I was like, I don't see it. Can you show me? And so she mentioned that the orange piece was like the face, and then the mask was the yellow and the red. Or like kind of a hat, I guess you could say, or like a headpiece.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, that's the cool thing. I think people they look for the real world in abstract pieces, right? So cool.
Yeah. And this one she referred to as the dancing man.
Okay.
Which I totally see that if I'm going for that.
Yeah, I can definitely see that one with this. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, but these two pieces really complement each other very well. I really enjoy these.
Yeah, well, for me, I can picture these like in a home, in an office, in a boardroom, because they are almost like a little bit timeless in terms of like their subject matter. Mm-hmm. And even though they might look like, this one's really good, this Dauntless piece, you can, if you look closely, you can see that there's texture and detail within the flat planes of color. So yeah, there's a lot to like look at from a distance, but then also when you come up close, you can notice like really cool little details.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that when you're seeing these in person, the colors are just so vibrant. Like it's just the most gold you've ever seen, and it's just like so striking. Yeah, they're really neat.
Oh, thank you.
And then these ones are so fun.
Yes, I love these ones. Well, the cool thing with this is you can hang it vertically. You can hang them all in a row. You can do like a square with them. You can also hang them from their corners and as diamonds, which I've done with some of these little ones. Yeah, so you can hang them like in any way your imagination concocts. Yeah, so they're pretty cool.
That's awesome. Well, it makes it so accessible for different spaces as well. Instead of having one very large piece, if you don't have a home or an office that you can fit that in, but you want some art, like these little tiny ones, and especially because you can hang them differently, it's so versatile for a space.
Yeah, totally.
Cool. And I have a couple more questions for you. What is your favorite subject or style that you've done so far?
Oh, I honestly feel like I don't necessarily have like one style or subject. It's almost like having to pick which is my favorite kid. I kind of like really the heart of all of my work is storytelling. And it's the idea of like communication, and that communication might even be like an emotional state, like an idea abstracted. So for me, when I'm like wanting to make something, I really start with like the idea, like the meaning or the message that I want to create or communicate, and then I ask myself, okay, well, should this be a painting? Or should this be a film, like a video format? Or should this be a photograph? Or should I, like, and sometimes I sketch things out first and I'm like conceptualizing, like, what way do I want to say this? Maybe it's words and image, or maybe it's a poem. So in terms of having one favorite, but I would have to say that, like, in terms of my writing and my visual art, like my writing is very like, it comes from the head space. Yeah. And sometimes I can get like, I'm like, oh, I need a break, and I'll go from writing and I'll do something visual. And same with visual. Sometimes I'm just like, oh, I'm just not like having this breakthrough I need. So then I'll switch back to writing. So I really feel like all of my different art forms are connected. They all speak to each other. Yeah. So for example, like even one of the books I wrote, Expecting Sunshine, it's a memoir. And then I felt like, oh, I need to communicate this story and this life experience through something visual. So I created Expecting Sunshine documentary film. Yeah. But it's also a documentary that interviews doctors, nurses, other bereaved parents. It also has like artistic creations where, for example, when I'm pregnant with one of my children after my loss, I had one of my friends do a body art painting of 3 different gestational stages, and then we symbolically removed those. We have just different kinds of like artistic ways of communicating the message, but through film. So that's really like at the heart of what I do is storytelling, and I just find whichever creative outlet best communicates that message. And sometimes it's one of them, or sometimes it's all of them. Yeah,
that's wonderful. Do you have any influence or inspiration from other artists currently?
Well, right now I'm reading like I think it's like a 500-page book on Andy Warhol. Oh, and the book is so big and so heavy because it has so many actual like color reproductions of his artwork in it. I can't even take it anywhere with me. I can only read it at home because it probably weighs like 10 pounds. I'm super inspired by his creative process, not necessarily that I want to like make art that looks like his, but more of his artistic journey and how he incorporates photography into his silk screens and paintings, and like sort of everything's connected. And then he's also a filmmaker, which I hadn't really known about before I started reading this book. Like, he was a prolific filmmaker.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, I know. Lots of like drugs and sex and like, you know, scandalous topics for the 60s and 70s when he's releasing his film. But he was a big pioneer of like the underground like screening, like underground filmmaking in New York at that time. So it's such a like an inspiring read. So I'm super inspired by him. I'm always inspired by Canadian artists. There's so many contemporary ones that like I couldn't even, like, the list is so long, but like I love Emily Carr, like the Group of Seven. And I do think like the Group of Seven, Tom Thompson, like their color choices are very vivid. And so I would see them as like definitely an influence of like my color choices, even though I'm not necessarily painting, you know, the lake and natural mountain and tree landscapes, but their color choices, more impressionistic and vivid colors, really speak to me. Yeah. And I've always been a fan of Robert Rauschenberg. Village artwork. So like, if you visit my studio, I try to keep it clean, but I have boxes of like random things, and I'm like, one day I'm gonna bring all these like weird things. Like I literally have a box of buttons and bells, and, like weird stuff. I have a shed full of wood, like wood that I'm not gonna burn in a fire, but like used somehow sculpturally. I don't know. I save all these little weird things. So Robert Rauschenberg, like his artwork, like the goat that's painted, like I can just picture, I saw some of his work when I have visited different galleries in the States. And it's just so like quirky and unexpected that, yeah, I really love like assemblage. Yeah. I find that like, I find inspiration in other artists, but also like in movies and some, like, you know, Netflix, some of these shows that they're putting out, like the way that they film them is so cool. So I really find inspiration everywhere I go. And I think that's something about just being attuned to the world and paying attention. Yeah, like really trying to notice people and the places where I go. Yeah, inspiration abounds everywhere.
Wonderful. Yeah, well, allowing, like you said, having your eyes open and allowing that to naturally come in and affect you in a way that you want to make something and you want to create out of that, I think is really, really cool. And it's a really great point because inspiration does come from so many different places.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we have reached our time for today. So thank you so much for having us today, Alexis. It was an honor to learn about your artistic practice. And yeah, I'm so excited to see what you make next, all of your things that you make.
Oh, thank you. Well, it was my pleasure. And I can see your passion for art and everything you do come through as well. So thank you for this conversation. It was wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. And if any folks who are watching have any questions for Alexis or for me at Art Rentals and Sales, just feel free to reach out. Like I mentioned earlier, Alexis has a wonderful website. So just shoot over an email to her or over to me at artrental@youraga.ca. Thank you all so much. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.